was like thousands of them blowing off people's dicks, which I've been joking about all week long. Wait, it's like, right. End over end penises flying all over Beirut. And Nasrallah said that the attacks are targeting an entire nation. A lot of eyes were removed because they sent a text or a page, or so the guys are looking at this, and the doctors were just like scooping eyeballs out. They actually killed a young girl too, and she was actually so young that Matt Gaetz fucked her. So,
wow.
Wow.
That one's for you, Nikki.
Coney's on fire today.
Yes. All right. Hi, everybody. This is John, back with Real Veteran News, here with three good veteran friends, all been on here before. And we're going to go through the veteran news for the week, give the veteran perspective on that. We got 1,000 bottles of lubricant and baby oil ready to go.
Oh, yeah. Time
So nothing will slow us down. Friction is the enemy.
And since we've got a Marine, we can also add in that pile of 900 dildos.
All right, so obviously P. Diddy joke, and I would like to introduce my guests. We'll go in reverse, new to the show order. So, John, it's your second show. I'd like to introduce you, our Marine.
Absolutely. My name is John Jackson. I am a United States Marine Corps vet, served in Al-Anbar province, Iraq. I used to work in Democratic politics, but I wanted my sanity back, so I left, being around politicians. It kind of drives you nuts. Work in the financial sector now for a very large financial institution.
All right. So John's our only Marine. He was on the show first time last time. Came out of the closet for loving crayons.
I did.
And but like honestly, if there's like a Marine and then like a box of crayons and they want to be together, I mean, love is love, and I'm not going to stop that. You know what I mean? Like, the colors do taste pretty.
I can't help it that they're good.
Next, Ted, do you want to go?
Yeah, Ted, I'm a retired U.S. Army Ranger, the senior member of the group. So I bring bitterness and hatred from my years of life.
From 2nd Battalion, right?
And 2nd Battalion, where everybody hates everybody else. That's 2nd Ranger Battalion.
All right. Well, thanks for coming back, Ted. Mason been on the show. Was my first friend on the show. Been on doing this for a long time. So, Mason, would you like to introduce yourself again?
Sure. Mason Blue, I'm the Air Force vet. My background is on technology, so I'm just a huge nerd. So this is kind of right in my wheelhouse because the future of warfare is pure nerdery.
Yes. I think the future of the military as well is technology organization. The era of the main effort being trigger pullers is going away, I think. All right. Well, we introduce everyone. My name is John Koenig. I was also a Ranger in 3rd Battalion, and now I'm a data scientist, although probably that sucks. I want to do something else soon. We'll figure that out.
You got to figure something out. What about the app that I've been telling you about that I'm almost about to finish up that I want you to join my team on so that we can make billions of dollars?
That's right.
That's what we're going to be doing in the next couple of months, just to make sure you know.
First off, yes, Mason has his app, and we are all going to get rich. Can you turn on your ring light? Show off your facial features.
I am
really get that non-binary sex appeal going.
Come see how good I look.
Yeah. All right. Yes, Mason has his app. It's coming along pretty well. I do think the UI is ugly as hell, but I was thinking about what do you expect? But no, it's honestly coming along well, like the new features. But I was thinking if I have to work for Mason in his company, I'm gonna fucking blow my brains out. I think. You know what I mean? If that's my path to success, but it might be, man. Honestly, your app is pretty substantial. We just gotta figure out that UI.
I think the UI is fairly good.
I know you think that. That's fine. All right. So topics for this week. Second Trump assassination, which kind of was going down while we were filming last week's show. We're going to talk about Israel, Gaza, the pager attack was big news. Russians and Chinese moving around near Alaska, and China, U.S. Military talks resuming. So we got 4 good topics of veteran military news to talk about this week. Are you guys ready to talk about it? Yes. Ted's always ready to go. Love it. All right. First topic, Trump assassination. Another one of these like weirdo guys, a little bit different profile from like the last that shooter that got canoed down the skull. He got caught, obviously. Probably, honestly, I think both of them had a good chance to kill Trump. I mean, if either one of them was trained by the military, even just basic training, Trump would probably be dead. Everyone knows, we've seen it, right? There's like a chain link fence, there's shrubbery, he's hiding in there for 12 hours. He's got his granola bars or whatever. He like hangs up some plates. Like he thinks he's going to like have some kind of firing position there. It doesn't really make sense. A lot of what he's doing doesn't make sense, but he was in a good spot. He probably could have shot at Trump if Trump had come by. He had an SKS, which I didn't really understand why he was using an SKS, which is like Kalashnikov variant. The Secret Service dude, so he got a chain link fence, right? These holes, and he's using his barrel, and he's putting his barrel, probably resting it on the fence there, and then the Secret Service agent sees the barrel, probably pulls out his pistol and starts shooting, which is like, why? He should have just called on the radio or something. But he saw the barrel. If this guy had either like clipped the fence and like kept his barrel back behind the fence so the Secret Service agent couldn't see it, or if he had used binos and like left, I think he didn't have binos, and he was just like using his scope to look, which is a problem because then the rifle barrel compromised him to the Secret Service agent. And this good Secret Service agent makes up for the shitty, incompetent Secret Service agents from before, right? So this Secret Service agent did well, and there are some good people. So what do you guys think about like the tactics and like what this guy was doing and his chances of success in killing Trump? John, what do you think?
I think that the more disruptive you are as a leader, the more people are going to try to kill you. And disruptive doesn't mean you're good or bad. It means you're kind of disrupting the status quo. Just like MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated because he disrupted the status quo in a way. And I think that Trump is obviously a status quo disruptor. So I think by now it should be clear that you always have to have heightened security with a Donald Trump. The Secret Service did it under Obama because he was the first black president, and there were threats because of that. And so I think just as much as that was disruptive to America, Trump is disruptive to America because he's just different. He's different from the status quo, and there's gonna be people who don't like that and always want to kill. I think that if you were haphazard with Vice President Harris's security, there would be people who want to kill her too, because she's a former prosecutor. And I'm sure she put someone, there's no prosecutor that hasn't put someone behind bars who probably shouldn't be. And an angry family member coming after them because you put my brother behind jail or something. And so I think that when you're a public figure and you're a public figure who is consequential, the security has to be heightened. It's a shame that anyone can even have a chance at taking him out. I think while the Secret Service did do their job, he shouldn't have even been able to get that close.
Ted, what do you think?
Two things. One, I don't think either shooter was trained by Mossad. At least I'm 92% sure of that, based on recent events. Two, I think the first shooter was probably seriously trying to kill Trump. I think the second shooter, reading his background, reading about his life, I think he was probably 50-50. I think he was more concerned with the publicity and the attention based on some of the things he's done in his life. He saw the first shooter, all the attention he got. It's a traditional copycat crime. A lot of attention on the first shooter. This guy wanted it. We're missing some of the questions that we should be asking. When you look at this guy's rap sheet, has anybody said where he got his rifle at? I mean, SKS, AK, M4, who cares what it was? I mean, the guy was a convicted felon for having explosives 20 years ago. He shouldn't be able to purchase a firearm, period. So who sold it to him?
Yeah, you're right. It's like, I couldn't really figure out why he was using an SKS, but because he was a convicted felon, he probably just like couldn't go and just buy whatever gun he wanted. That's like the only gun he could get his hands on. So
he bought it from somebody. He bought it off of Craigslist or something, some shit like that.
Yeah.
That he selected that. Actually, I've got an SKS and I can hit a man-sized target at 300 meters with it. Now, granted, my training's probably a little bit different, but still, it's not that bad of a rifle. to shoot somebody on a golf course, yeah. I mean,
they'll get the job done.
700 or 800 guys in the 2nd Ranger Battalion could have made that shot. So that's what I want to know. I want to know why a convicted felon who's been investigated by the FBI, has been on warning lists, has got all this shit going on in his background, had an assault rifle. And at the end of the day, it's categorized as an assault rifle. An old one, but it still is.
Yeah, it's a fact. Mason, what are you thinking about the Trump stuff?
So first, I would say this is not the end. This is not going to be the last attempt on Trump's life at all. There's also up in New England, there was like a bomb threat that was, somebody was saying it was an exercise and it wasn't legitimate. I'm not sure the whole details on that, but seems like having an exercise with possible explosives where Trump is going to go is a really stupid idea for an exercise right now. You don't do exercises around Donald Trump right now. I think that there's been 2 or 3 attempts on his life that we know of, and it will not be the last. Also, on the note of these assassins, it's really interesting that both the first 2 assassins have been in BlackRock commercials. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they were in the commercials for BlackRock. So the idea that this isn't a conspiracy is crazy, especially when you factor in that Trump wants to kind of shut down the CIA a bit, and he's mentioned that he wants to hire RFK Jr. to also drain the swamp. Like, yeah, he's got a big target on his back. John the Marine mentioned is he's disrupting the status quo, right? And that does exactly what you said. He's threatening to put thousands of government workers out of work. And those people now have an incentive to kill him. Other incentives to kill him. If you looked, there was a hack this week where the Iranians hacked the Trump campaign and gave all the information to Kamala Harris's campaign, right? So obviously that means the entire basically Middle East is going to be trying to assassinate Donald Trump leading up to the election, because he's weaker until he gets elected. So it's the smartest time to try and kill him. And when you look at it, Iran has a very good reason to try and kill Trump because he did kill Soleimani. Now, the Soleimani kill was a righteous kill because Soleimani was the leader of the special forces for Iran and was responsible for killing thousands of Americans during the global war on terror. So that's going to be their retribution. In addition, the cartels have a reason to want to kill Donald Trump.
You said Soleimani was responsible for killing thousands of Americans.
Soleimani.
How exactly did he kill thousands of Americans?
The Soleimani was responsible for helping to machine the IEDs that were used throughout the Iraq theater.
Thousands.
He brought EFPs into Iraq, explosive form penetrators.
I think you bring up a good
couple
point.
Thousand anyway.
You bring up a very good point, Mason, and I was trying to allude to that earlier. Donald Trump is a disruptor, and I'm not saying that to insult him or compliment him. But when you are as outspoken and disruptive as he is, you're going to make some enemies in this world. And those enemies are going to try to get at you. So this is something he kind of has to take into his own hands. He might have to change the way he operates. He might have to be a little bit less public about what his schedule is. He might have to, we all know this term, he might have to have better OPSEC. The former president might have to have better OPSEC if he wants to not be an easy target.
I was going to give a brief history on the SKS, but I'll spare.
I wouldn't mind it, actually.
Well, Simonov was actually the Simonov carbine, which is the SKS. The designer of that rifle was one of Kalashnikov's competitors. So the SKS is an interim between the Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle of World War II and the AK-47, which was Kalashnikov's design. So it's kind of sort of a predecessor.
It's a 50s weapon.
But it was actually late World War II. It just was never produced in numbers to be used during the war. The AK-47 was late 40s, early 50s, fielded in the early 50s with the Soviet Army.
Let me keep going. Can I keep going? Since John was upset about that, I referenced Soleimani as not being as effective as,
He disrupted too.
All right, so
John, you disrupted us.
Yes,
You're
John apparently.
I'm definitely disruptive. Yes, that's the Pentagon.
But okay, so then the next thing after the entire Middle East wanting to kill Donald Trump, I would say the cartels would be the next most violent group that wants to kill Donald Trump. Because if you think Kamala Harris has full open borders, Donald Trump has closed the borders. So the cartels, if Donald Trump wins the election, they are going to lose tens of billions of dollars. So it is in their best interest to kill Donald Trump before he can get elected. I'm just saying this is not the end. And if I were Donald Trump, I agree with you, John, and both Johns, that I would change my actions, but I wouldn't really worry about OPSEC as much. What I would do is I would hire my own security. I would no longer trust the Secret Service to protect me, and I would hire 10 fucking rock eaters, just like Elon Musk has done, and I would take care of it myself. I would no longer trust them because they have demonstrated that they are incompetent. The other thing on the note of tactics, I mean, this guy's clearly an amateur. I'm shocked that they didn't have infrared or any other optics to show him, like they actually saw the barrel of the gun instead of having some sort of optics to reveal him. That was a shocker to me. The other big thing is, like, personally, if I were going to do it there, I would have taken over a house on the golf course, right? I wouldn't have sat in a bush. I'd have taken over a house, been on the second floor in a window, clear line of sight. Also, it makes it so that you're not easily able to be detected. I mean, the tactics were just stupid. You go up, you take over some guest room in somebody's house, maybe an abandoned vacation home on that golf course. Trump's dead.
In that wood line, he can get away faster. Like, he almost got away. There was a woman took a picture of his license plate and called the cops because of how weird he looked. I guess he had a gun.
Here's the thing: if you're going to kill the president, you're not getting away with it. Right? The premise of our society, all of Western society, is that it is easy to kill. It is hard to get away with it. Right? That is how our society works. We have a high trust society where we go out and we expect nobody's going to kill us.
Yeah,
but if somebody wants to just like when somebody shoots up a school, it's easy to do, but you're not going to get away with it. You are going to be hunted down and killed.
If he popped Trump on that golf course, got in his car and went away, I mean, they probably would have got him on cell phone or whatever. But I mean, if this guy had actually used proper tactics, like didn't have a cell phone on him, took the license plate off his car or whatever, shot Trump, got in the car, drove off, they'd have a very tough time finding this guy.
I have a feeling that they would be able to bring in some air assets and lock down the area fairly well and be able to.
Oh, really? These guys. No,
not the exact Secret Service, but once they bring in the entire federal agencies to.
Dude, he'd already be gone. Like, he'd be gone.
I just think they have good enough investigators that they'd be able to track him down.
I'm going to say this because I know the area around Mar-a-Lago very well. It's a coastal area. If he had a lot of resources and a boat to get away,
scuba gear,
and they didn't get an eye on him. There's no cameras on him. He had a silencer on his weapon. Smoothly just got away. It could be potentially difficult to track him down, especially if he planned it out exceptionally well and made himself harder to track. I'm not saying he wouldn't be, but yeah, you would need a lot of resources and a lot of money to be able to pull that off. And most people doing this are pretty lone wolf, nutty people who don't necessarily have all the resources at their disposal.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky. If either of these two guys were military, like, it's over. The country, Trump's dead on live TV or whatever. The whole country is in civil war, basically, if one of these guys isn't as stupid as they are.
Yeah. And, the final thought, like, a bunch of this, they're like, they got within 75 yards of the president. Like, oh my God. Like, again, it's not hard to kill. It's hard to get away with it. And especially like a presidential candidate, like, think about Reagan. He was shot at like 5 feet. Think about RFK. He was killed by Sirhan at like 5 feet. If you only have a 10-person detail, it's impossible to prevent people from getting close. Also, like, I'm curious as to how they're going to prosecute this guy because since he didn't actually take a shot, like, what's his crime? Is it going to be possession of a firearm that he's not allowed to have? Like, what are they going to be able to charge him with? So I'm curious to see how the case is going to shake out because since he didn't actually shoot Donald Trump or take a shot, like, they can't really accuse him of attempted assassination, I don't think. Maybe conspiracy at best.
I mean, they got to throw his ass in fucking jail. I mean, this dude's going to jail.
They're going to find a way to destroy him. I'm just curious as to how. Like, again, I mean, obviously we mentioned he's a felon, so he can't have a firearm, so that'll be the easiest one. But there's going to be, I'm just curious as to what the charges will be because I don't think it'll be like shooting at a president. But again, I just think that people underestimate the trust in our society, and we trust that the people around us are not going to be violent assholes trying to kill us or steal from us. But when that trust breaks down, killing is very easy. And I think we're seeing that right now where people are going to just try and take shots at Trump for the next couple of months. And if I were him, or the next 2 months, he needs to be wearing body armor. That's for sure. He should have a vest on at all times.
Yeah, I think he is wearing soft armor.
He may well be wearing something. Hard to say. He's got the money to be able to wear a really good set, so you're not going to see it through his clothes.
But he needs to have his own rock eaters out there sweeping everywhere he goes, and he needs to tell them, I expect you to be offensive, I expect you to kill any threat, and I will get you out of jail when you do it.
And we don't know that he doesn't.
I also think he should. I don't think he should do outdoor rallies. I think that's too. I think that's.
He has to. He has to.
He has
That's his
to.
model.
He can do indoor
Going
routes. That's what he's saying. He can do it indoor.
In these rural places, it's all outdoor.
True.
He can't back off. He's got to put himself at risk, or he's gonna be charged, or he's gonna be challenged on. No, he's afraid. He's a coward. He has built this image of himself. You know, the fist in the air, fight, fight, fight. What if he stops doing that? What will the message be?
I understand, but I think I'm speaking of this neutrally, not with my liberal hat on. But I'm saying that if you want to make it to the presidency, if he wants to make it to November, and once he is president, it becomes a lot harder to take him out because he's got that much more security around him. It would only be temporary. I think his diehard supporters who are attracted to him on that strength were fine, and I don't think that turns off independent voters that he's taking extra security precautions. I think he needs to focus on winning the election, and part of winning the election is living to get to the election.
Yeah, you got to be around the end of January to be the president. So,
and I think one final point: there's been less than 50 presidents, right? So the winner of this would be the 47th president. 4 presidents have been killed in the past. It's almost 10%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not unfathomable. So I do think he should take his security very serious. He needs to take it into his own hands, whatever that is, whether that's your own personal security or operational security, or just not being exposed, not having these open air rallies. The Harris campaign does not really do that. They tend to be indoors. I don't think there's anything wrong with going indoors.
well, he does have the shield up now. He's got the glass box around him.
Keep that glass box. One last question. So I mentioned, basically the entire Middle East wants to kill him. The cartels are going to want to kill him. A lot of radical Democrats are going to want to kill him. Probably China and Russia probably want to kill him. That's a lot.
Maybe not Russia.
You don't think Russia?
I would say Russia's probably doing everything they can to keep him alive because he said we're going to stop funding Ukraine.
Okay, that's valid.
Russia wants him.
That's pretty valid. But either way, that's the Middle East, the cartels, and a lot of Democrats. Maybe even the Ukrainians, right? So since I got that one wrong.
Don't forget China, bro.
And China. That's a lot. And that's just what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So, there's a lot of people with a lot of resources that are going to try and kill him.
Yes.
And again, John, as you mentioned, if it's successful, civil war will happen.
Yeah. If he gets killed before the election, it's going to be a lot of upset rural folk. All right. So next topic is Israel and Gaza. A lot of stuff's happened there. They had, the attacks and everything. We can go through all the little back and forth. Israel shifting the main effort from Gaza, which they've essentially flattened, to northern Israel because Hezbollah, in sympathy with Hamas, has been launching rockets into northern Israel. Thereby, the people living in northern Israel can't stay in their houses, so they're refugees in their own place, and so they're not happy. And so the Israelis want to make the north safe again. And it looks like they're going to fight. It seems like both of them want to fight and that it's just inching towards that, and don't really know how that's going to turn out. But we were all kind of really fascinated by the Hezbollah pagers. We didn't even know they really had pagers. These pagers got compromised in a supply chain attack by Israeli Mossad, where they've done this before. They put explosives in it, the cell phone, the pager, whatever it is, and then they detonate it. Hezbollah, they detonated these pagers all across Lebanon, and there was thousands of them blowing off people's dicks, which I've been joking about all week long. Wait, it's right, end over end penises flying all over Beirut. And Nasrallah said that the attacks are targeting an entire nation. A lot of eyes were removed because they sent a text or a pager. So the guys are looking at this, and the doctors were just scooping eyeballs out. They actually killed a young girl too, and she was actually so young that Matt Gaetz fucked her. So,
wow. Wow.
That one's for you, Nikki.
Coney's on fire today.
Yes. All right. But there's some other stuff that went on too. Ted, what do you think about the pagers and Israel versus?
Hezbollah? Like it, hate it, tip of the hat. This is one of the greatest spycraft maneuvers of the last 100 years, and it's not something that happened last week. It did happen last week, but this has been in play for years. The supply chain interdiction, how they got the pagers, taking them apart, putting the explosives in them. The number killed isn't that high, but the number injured, as you said, is, again, as we know, you don't shoot to kill, you shoot the wound, and then it takes two to carry. That's sniper craft there. But yeah, I mean, shit, bold move. I think probably Hamas and Hezbollah are pissed right now that they didn't think about it, that they didn't do it. I mean, this is like turning terror on the terrorist, depending on your point of view of Hezbollah.
How the fuck do these morons not take one pager, one walkie-talkie, and tear it down to see if they've been tampered with? Like, how?
You've worked with them before.
Fucking stupid.
When was the last time you saw one of them take their rifle apart and clean it?
It's the Middle East. Like,
that's my point.
What the fuck?
You work with the Iraqis and the Afghans. When was the last time you saw them take their weapons apart and clean them? They're going to take pagers apart and inspect the inside to see if there's 10 grams of patent in it or RDX. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not putting down the brave folks we fought over there, but I'm kind of glad they cut the sights off their AKs and never did clean them.
John?
I'm just throwing that out there. John gets me.
I don't see an end to this shit in sight. It's a fucking mess. It is fucking nasty. I tend to be a little more neutral on this. I don't think there's anything as a nation we can do to bring peace to that region at this point. There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And this is it getting worse. I don't smile at anybody going through pain or dying horrifically. I don't want it to happen to anybody. But good Lord, it's going to keep happening. And we have to figure out a way to minimize the influence of these Islamic terrorist organizations. We have to figure out politically how to win the battle over there. We can fucking kill people all day long, but how are we going to win the political battle, the ideological battle? I think there has to come a day where Hezbollah and Hamas don't have a big influence over people who are very impressionable. And so I think that is when Israel will win. That's when the U.S. will win, when you can minimize their influence politically.
He mentioned there's no end in sight, and I disagree with that. He's just being normal, and I'm going to be abnormal. So the only possible end is for all of the Jews to be killed, right? If all the Jews get killed in the Middle East, then that will end, because I don't think the Jews are going to kill all the Muslims. So that's the only way it'll end. And that's that's a bad end state, but I'm just saying, like, that's...
They could fucking negotiate and sign a piece of paper. They don't have to, like, wipe out once... Anyway, whatever. Look,
that's literally the situation over there. Like, the Muslims aren't going to stop until every Jew is dead.
And
some of them, yeah.
To my point, the only way to really, truly end the status quo over there is to minimize the influence of radical Islam. You know, moderate, more westernized Islam exists in the Middle East. It's just not as influential with the destitute, poorer populations. And so when you think about where these groups recruit, they're jihadists, they recruited amongst the people who are doing bad. And so I think that's something we have to think about. How are we going to get to those people? How do you get to those people before the jihadists do?
I think the solution is to quarantine the entire fucking region.
Okay, Mason, let me ask a question. All right. How... Mason, imagine that you're a Hezbollah guy or whatever. You already hate the Israelis. Fucking hate the Israelis. Then they blow off your fucking dick. How mad are you at that point?
I mean, that's how you make it.
I don't know, but I think I'd be pretty mad.
So fucking pissed.
That was terrible. That's how you make it.
Let me expand on that. I think it's over when one side feels they're not going to win. In order for them to survive, they have to come to the table. Right now, I think both sides feel that in the long run, in the long game, they can win. Hezbollah, very strong, not Hamas. Very well financed, very well armed, very well trained. They've been fighting in Syria for the last 10 years. They feel they can win this thing. Maybe not a victory like VE Day when we marched down the street in Berlin, but in their own terms. When one side or the other backs away, take Egypt and Israel. When was the last time they had a war? They both stepped away and said neither side can win this thing, so we may as well make peace. That's the Middle East. That's peace in the Middle East.
For now. But I bet you if Lebanon has a breakthrough in the north, Egypt will hit them in the south.
It wouldn't be a good move on the Egyptians' part, but you never know with that region.
But going back to the original kind of like pager attack, I kind of want to give a couple comments. People have been saying that it was planted months in advance, which probably does make sense and all. But the one thing that confuses me is, and there's a question I have for you guys that know more about this, like what temperature would ignite that explosive? Because I'm like, if they planted this years in advance, what are the odds that not a single one of these devices that they had pre-planted ever overheated in like the year leading up to this attack? That not a single one of the devices waiting for it ever experienced an overheat.
It's just going to burn. It's not going to detonate if the explosive is just going to burn. You have to detonate the explosive. So, plus they're professionals.
Overheated the battery. I thought that was how they triggered it.
No, let's talk about the batteries, right? There was one idea where it was like they hacked the pagers and then had thermal overrun and the batteries like melted down, like it happens in like airplanes sometimes and stuff. But like when you saw the video, like that was high explosive, right? Like a battery doesn't fucking do that. Like the battery will start to smoke. It might pop a little bit. The other reason why they didn't do the battery thing is because when they clack it off, and first off, like who's the person who got to push the button? That must have been so satisfying. Blow all those dicks off all at once. But yeah, very satisfying. But I bet he reserved it for himself. If you hacked all those pagers, the variation in the time it took for all the batteries to melt down would render the attack ineffective. Because like once the first battery started, whatever, he would call up with his buddies, be like, "Hey, the pagers are fucked up." They all have to clack at exactly the same time, otherwise they'll take them away and the attack becomes ineffective. So high explosives, no battery shenanigans.
But how do they detonate it? I thought it was using the battery's temperature.
No, they sent a signal.
Okay.
They hacked the firmware, and then it was just like it's just waiting for the bat signal or whatever. And then
a very small cap, a very small electric blasting cap, and a small amount of petin or another explosive that's very high yield or not high yield. A very high relative effectiveness factor, which RDX has one of the highest right now in conventional explosives. The amount that you would need to maim someone. Half of a battery, 2 different alarms in it. One's your normal alarm that goes beep, beep, beep when you get a message, and the other one initiates the blasting cap. I don't think it's spycraft. They're not ever going to say this is exactly how we do it. You'll read about it in 20 years in Popular Mechanics.
The other thing is there was a second wave. The second day they attacked walkie-talkies and solar panels. So there's going to be like a fear of technology. And then I believe on the third day, because there was that fear of technology, the Hezbollah operators or the Hezbollah leadership like consolidated in one location and they got bombed by IDF and a lot of their leadership was killed. So IDF's doing some great work. And the final joke that I have is not really, if you were to give this campaign a name, the pager campaign, I'm going to call it Shock and Shalom.
Shalom and
all right. I was thinking of saying rest in pieces to Hezbollah penises, but all right. My analysis, thank you, Mason. My analysis on this is I actually think it was good for Hezbollah. I don't think this is like some kind of victory for Israel. Obviously, very demoralizing, humiliating, and terrifying for the people in Lebanon and for Hezbollah. But the point of this op was to clack off the pagers at the initiation of an invasion of southern Lebanon, thereby giving them a big advantage. They're not just trying to harass these guys or blow their dicks off. They want to blow their dicks off right before they invade. That was the mission, okay? The reason why they clacked them off on like a Tuesday or whatever is because their operation was compromised. Supposedly, 2 Hezbollah dudes or whatever figured out one way or another that the pagers were compromised. The Israelis figured out they were compromised. They're like, well, we might as well blow some dicks and just like clack them off. But then the whole op, like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they scooped out a couple eyes or whatever, but it's like strategically, it's a failure. Much like my nude Africa dating profile that I started.
God, yeah.
I see you on there,
I'm
John.
not sure where that came from.
Yeah, I'm occasionally on there, but the only thing I put is comments under the videos that say name ? So. Yeah.
I like to talk politics on Nude Africa. All right. Obviously, I have a different take on it. What do you guys think about the strategic? My idea here that this is a strategic failure for Israel, and for Lebanon. For Lebanon, it's a null, or for Hezbollah, it's a null event, basically.
I would disagree. I did not know that they had, intercepted because you guys a minute ago mentioned like you guys were really talking about how they hadn't detected it. So I would say strategically, the two questions I have is one, how did they make sure that it wasn't like none of these pages were in the hands of innocent people? That was like one question.
It was like girl that Gates fucked. She got killed.
Yeah, but she could have just been standing in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, of course.
So that was the one question, is just far as like the legitimacy of the operation. Assuming the legitimacy, that means that everybody they killed was probably an important person, because they're not going to give a pager to like an E1, right? So they probably killed their senior NCOs, or maimed 4,000 senior NCOs and junior officers or senior officers in the Hezbollah military. So that is still a huge tactical and strategic advantage. So I would say it's not a failure. And given the fact that the Israelis are moving for operations in the north, it'll take a ton of time to recover. And at the very least, they're going to completely impact how Hezbollah does information operations and how they communicate going forward. Everybody's going to have to adapt to it, but I definitely think it's not a loss.
John, I agree with what you said. Everything has to be considered at this: tactical, operational, strategic. This was a tactical victory. As Mason said, they removed probably a lot of leadership, blew a lot of trigger fingers off, a lot of eyeballs out. They're not aiming rifles, and they no longer have the sack to fight a war. Strategically, though, there may be a lot of supporters of Israel that are stepping back and saying, wow, that's, their moral high ground has just been shoveled away. They've stooped to doing something that the terrorists would do. A lot of people have very short memories for history when it comes to the Mossad, but looking at it from tactical, operational, strategic, definitely a tactical victory. They won on the battlefield. Strategically, we won't know for a couple of weeks. It's support for an invasion of Lebanon there now. Was it ever there? I don't know. But based on injuring children, injuring non-combatants, we blew up to maim, not to kill, which I don't have a whole problem with that. The whole ethical killing of humans, I'm kind of, that's kind of an oxymoron in my book. And I've been yelled at for that before, for, let's just say, using white phosphorus inappropriately.
Shake and bake.
You got to mark a target. But, strategic, operational, tactical. Got to look at everything in those terms.
Another thing to talk about here with the Israel-Gaza stuff is I went to University of Maryland, and I've honestly been there a lot recently taking classes. A student group, I am not protesting. It's changed a lot. I went to University of Maryland from 2001 to 2005, and recently, and I was also there in 2013. And yeah, it's a lot different, obviously, but there are a lot of Jewish people in Maryland, and there's a lot at the University of Maryland as well. More Muslims, and the whole college scene now is kind of like against Israel and on the Palestinian side. So at the University of Maryland, a student group wants to have a vigil on October 7th, which is the anniversary of when Hamas attacked Israel. It's kind of a troll. They do this stuff all the time, but it's like on that day, it's going to piss off like the Jewish students and all the people there. This university basically said no events on that day, only university events on that day. You can have your vigil like another day. And then now they're suing the university on First Amendment, saying that they have a right to troll the Jews on University of Maryland on the day that the attack happened. So what do y'all think about the freedom of speech, First Amendment, college, all that stuff? Mason, you want to go first?
They have the right to assemble. Just because they're cunts doesn't mean they don't have the right to assemble. I disagree with them doing it, but I think, as you mentioned, strategic, tactical, and operational, I think this is a tactical operation. Protest, it's an information operation conducted in American soil to try and influence the war over there, right? I think it will backfire, because every time I see something like this happen, I side with the Israelis. I'm like, wow, hopefully the Israelis can just go and commit some genocide.
Okay, interesting show today. Who's next?
I can go.
All right. Are you on the pro-genocide too, John?
No, I'm not pro genocide, but I also am careful.
Bold position you struck.
I'm also careful about what I call genocide. There's a difference between genocide and a war that is just straight up nasty.
True.
And I think that sometimes people are a little loose with the term genocide. Being haphazard about civilian casualties is not the same as genocide. I think it's very different. I think anyone who served in the military sees it as very different. I don't know anyone who served who likes civilian casualties. Nobody signs up to kill little girls unless you're weird. You sign up to kill bad guys.
Don't kill all these little girls.
There are guys who like to be provocative and say shit like that, but in reality, the majority of us, that's not what we dream of doing. I mean, there are guys, Marines make pretty sick jokes. I'm sure soldiers do too. But the reality is, war is always going to draw protest. People getting killed is always going to draw some protest. And I'm glad that Mason stood up for their right to assemble, because not too long ago, folks on the right were pretty upset about folks being barred from college to speak because they had some controversial speech that was deemed hate speech. And the reality is, let people come and speak. If you don't like it, write a story about it, why it's bad, but let them speak. When you let them speak, you have a chance to also explain why you don't like it, why what they're saying is harmful. Let them assemble. If they say stupid anti-Semitic things, it's only making them look stupid.
I mean, I used to think that, but now you look at how effective the information campaign is on college campuses. As somebody already said it, the average college student supports Hamas. The average college student supports Hezbollah.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. All right, Ted, you want to go?
But not enough to go and stand next to him on the firing line. And that
they're college kids. I mean, come on.
I think a lot of them are very ignorant. When I speak to some of them, I will ask, so you're anti-fascist. What about Islamic fascism? Because if you're against fascism, if you're against mass murder, then you're going to be against Islamic mass murderers and Islamic fascists. You can't just selectively ignore that. So what it comes down to is a lot of college circles, a lot of far left circles, they conveniently ignore it because it's not part of their narrative.
You mean like in Yemen? I'm just going to throw that out there because I've got a little bit of knowledge on what one Islamic nation did to another in Yemen. I don't remember anybody on college campuses lifting a finger to say that was wrong. And if you want to talk about genocide, I have to agree here. I mean, they have a right to free speech. They have a right to assemble. They have a right to protest. However, they need to keep in mind that down the road a few months, when a speaker, an assembly, a protest that they disagree with is coming to a campus near them, they need to shut the hell up, because everybody has the same right that they're screaming about wanting right now. And that's where I put my libertarian hat on, which is very small, about 1% usually. Yeah, that was a joke, but I think John's the only one that really got it. 1% of the population, libertarian.
Okay. I thought you meant the hat was like really small. I was like,
I didn't get you.
No, my libertarian hat is very small. It's like 1% of Congress size. No, as a critical thinker, you can't have a constitutional right without extending it to someone you disagree with, if what they're doing is within the confines of the Constitution. So when Ben Shapiro comes to the University of Maryland to speak, guess what? Everybody that's going to throw a fit and sue and he can't, hey, you've got rights, he's got rights.
Better example, I am a graduate from the University of South Carolina, and while I disagree with the choice, the leader of the Proud Boys and Milo whatever the fuck his name is, Yiannopoulos, those guys who have been invited to South Carolina to speak, and there's actually a lawsuit against it right now. And I'm like, hey, they have a right to speak if they're invited, but two people I would never want to listen to.
Mason, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to use the Proud Boys as an example. The Proud Boys are, to me, disgusting. I really don't think they elevate the narrative on anything. And I think, but if they're going to speak, if someone's going to invite them, then do that. Let them ruin their reputation by being associated by the Proud Boys. Let them do it.
Okay.
The other thing, I think the State Department needs to be watching these college protests. And if somebody's here on a student visa and they're being violent and disruptive, you need to revoke their student visa. And I think that the Donald Trump presidency, if he wins, he needs to wipe the floor, like fire everyone in state. Because I believe one of the biggest vulnerabilities in the United States right now is the visa process. And I think terrorist organizations are manipulating the State Department and have inside actors in the State Department helping get visas for nefarious actors. And I think we need to revoke almost every single access that has been granted under the Biden-Harris administration, deport them back, and then relook at their credentials.
We kind of got off of the University of Maryland issue, right? So University of Maryland, they do this stuff all the time. They're out protesting. They do this stuff all the time. They want to do it on that day. So it's like, do they have a right on that day? Does the university? What about the university's rights? So you tell me my university can't say no events today for any. They're not picking sides. It's not like the Jewish students have their thing and then the Muslims can't do anything, and they can have their fucking event the day before, the day after, whatever. But they're just saying, like, you're not gonna like troll these people. Because that's what they're doing basically. So it's like
what Islam does.
They have freedom of speech, and they're just not letting them do it on that day. I mean, they could be off campus. They can do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? And about the freedom of speech, you're like, oh, Ben Shapiro is going to come and they have to respect him. They won't, and we all know they won't, because they just want what they want. They don't give a fuck about free speech. Correct. They just want to use it, and they're fucking lawyers, and they just want to basically like sue the university, cause a problem. To argue. And then as soon as someone that they don't agree with comes around, they're just going to shout that person down and terrorize them and get them off the campus. They just want to take the campus and just have it be what they fucking want. So, fuck them. Honestly.
I think there is a toxic culture in America right now of I need to disassociate with everyone who is polar opposite of me politically. It is the university set a bad example, but I see a lot of folks on social media. I'm unfollowing this person because I don't like their politics. My friends since high school, I'm not gonna associate with them on social media anymore because I hate their politics. I understand some people doing that if they feel like who they are as a person is threatened by a certain person, but I think it's kind of over exaggerated sometimes. I'm like, you need to be able to respect people even if some of their views are a little cringe to you, or we're never really going to move forward as a nation if we can't give basic respect to people who views we diametrically oppose.
It's true. When I'm on social media and I'm like on Nude Africa, and in the comments people start talking about their politics again. They're like, I'm a black Nazi. Obama is worse than Hitler. I'm like, I'm just here to look at some naked pictures of you and your out of shape black wife. Like, I don't want all the politics mixed up in here.
I'll talk to you offline about that.
Send me your profile.
Well, here's I categorize a lot of people in America as either emotional thinkers or critical thinkers. And I mentioned critical thinker, and I love to talk about critical thinking. And there's a few litmus tests you can use to determine if someone's a critical thinker. In my world, it's they're burning the flag. We need to we need to ban that. It's like, okay, well, we should also ban open carry firearms. No, that's my Second Amendment right. It's like, well, it's their First Amendment right to burn the flag in public if they wish to. Well, that's wrong. Like, I'm sure if you went and spoke to them, they would tell you carrying a weapon, a firearm, is wrong too. Well, they're wrong because it's almost like the chimp and the mirror. They're yelling at each other because the chimp thinks the mirror is another chimp, and they're having this grand argument, but they're actually the same types of, they're the same people. The people who are extreme on one side are almost the same kind of people that are extreme on the other, because they think in terms of emotion. Everything's emotional. They don't read beyond the headline before they throw a fit and say, we need to stop this. We can't do this. It's like, well, technically they can. However, as you said, John, 3 or 4 months down the road, when someone they disagree with is going to exercise their First Amendment right We're going to sue. We're going to scream. We're going to protest. We're going to burn. But we're not like them. We're tolerant. We're not hateful, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, no, you're both of you are the exact same spoiled children throwing a fit to get your way versus taking a look at what reality looks like. A good buddy of mine from some days back loved to say common sense is no longer common in our country.
If we looked at the protests on like Columbia University that were all over the news a couple months back at the height of the Israel fight, I think it turned out that more than half of the protesters were paid agitators. So I think that's where they really need to clamp down. Like schools need to allow their students to have a voice. That's the safe space. But all these third-party people that are going to campuses causing disruptions, the police, the campus police need to interrogate them and get them the fuck out of there, throw them in jail.
Okay. All right. So next topic is the Russians fooling around and training with the Chinese near Alaska in the Alaska ADIZ Air Defense Identification Zone outside of U.S. territorial waters. Russia had sent 8 military planes, 4 Navy vessels, 2 of them being submarines, in this area around the Aleutian Islands. And then the U.S. military moved 130 soldiers to a deserted island named Shemya Island, while the Chinese and Russian do these drills. This is further cooperation between China and Russia that we've been seeing and talking about, but they're doing their drills up there. So what do you all think about the Russians up there?
First, anytime that there's something like this going on, our Navy needs to be surrounding them and actively pinging them. Like just harass the shit out of them with non-lethal and non-military forces. If we don't build an entire profile of those subs with active pings and you just continue, like you hammer them, every sailor on those boats should be deaf by the time they leave American territorial waters, because we should have fucked up their ears with active pings and as much shit as we can do. That's my personal opinion.
They're outside American waters.
Oh, okay. Well, if they come close, then but even if they're outside, ping the shit out of them. Just fuck with them.
Well, then they start fucking with us, and then eventually with the plane crashes or some shit happens, you know? I mean, like, why? What does that do?
Well, like I said, build an entire sonar profile of what those subs are so that you can better kill them in the future. Same with the planes that are in the air defense zone. We need to make sure we're getting proper signals intelligence and building an exact radar profile of every single one of those. We should be flying some sensors on every single side, above, below, left, right, back, front. We need to get an exact scan of everything they look like so that every single time when war happens, we can destroy them with better radar signals capability. So they're going to fuck with us. We need to build the capability to kill them. That's number one.
This is intense, like a P. Diddy 3-day fuck party. Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, but
and what's wrong with that?
If there's a submarine sitting in American territory,
they're called freak-offs.
Above, below, in front, behind, up and everywhere, dicks everywhere.
Or we can dump 1,000 bottles of lube on them and hit them in the face with a dildo. All right, like
it's lube and baby oil, and I don't know the ratio. Like, is it 50-50? I mean, you know.
I mean,
I think there's 1 bottle of lube per dildo. By the way, I think each dildo had a dedicated bottle of lube.
My God.
We're talking silicone or water-based, like
Holy
shit.
I'm going back to tactical, operational, and strategic on that comment.
I also say tactically, what are the Russians doing? They're probably building just like I'm saying, we need to build a profile of their vessels. What are they doing to us? They're probably building an exact sand table of how they can invade Alaska. If they're not mapping our coastline foot by foot right now with these missions, I mean, that's obviously what they're doing.
Yeah, and this is coming from an old Cold Warrior that lived through this once before with the Soviet Union. The maritime patrol aircraft they're using is like 60 years old, so we pretty well know everything about it that we need to know. This was common play 35 years ago when the Soviet Union and the Chinese were under a much more aggressive and less capitalistic regime. Shake the saber, see how long it takes to get wheels up on F-22s out of Elmendorf, and then see what the political fallout's going to be. You know, until this election is over with, it's kind of like weekend at grandma's house where everybody can do whatever they want to an extent, because one side doesn't. And you know, when you look at most of the things that are going on right now, the Russians, they benefit if Trump wins because he said we're not going to give billions of dollars to Ukraine. China, they benefit if Harris wins because they're not going to get the hell tariffed out of them. So everything that's going on right now has a reason, if nothing more than just to shake sabers and wake up the pilots at Elmendorf and get them off the runway. But as far as that island goes, that's not. Back in my day, when I went to basic training, I went to a winter basic training course, and there were a bunch of no shit Eskimos in my class, infantrymen, because they were out on these little remote villages all up and down the west coast of Alaska, and they were full-time soldiers that patrolled the beaches and the areas and the oil fields to look for Soviet infiltrators, because there were Spetsnaz soldiers coming on into Alaska and looking at what they could blow up and what they could do if there was a war. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're a long way from that. That's why I kind of do I flick over to a rerun of the Waltons when a lot of this stuff comes on right now, because I've seen it all before. And I can tell you, when they start shooting down Korean 747s full of civilians, that's when I'm going to say, okay, the shit's about to get real. And we're a long way from MiG-25 shooting down Korean 747s.
I think it's a flex. I think superpowers like to flex their military might. They know they're going to be detected. They do it in a way they know they're going to be detected because they want to flex. They're going to be like, hey, look at us. Look at us. Look at what we're doing. Look at us. What are you going to do? Look at us. And I think that's how global superpowers behave towards each other. I'm not up on my Pentagon game theory, but the Joint Chiefs have their recommendation on what to do next. I think this is something that's actually fairly normal. And as long as there's superpowers fighting for global domination, stuff like this is going to happen.
That's right. All right. So last topic is U.S. and China are resuming military-to-military talks. Basically, these generals, these high-level people, they used to hold these talks annually, but around 2020, kind of like when Trump lost, they stopped. And basically, China didn't want to do them. Biden got Xi to agree, have the talks again to try to provide like operational safety, so we don't have clashes with them in the Pacific. And so they started. The new Chinese defense minister's name is Hung Dong. I'm just kidding. I don't know what his fucking name is, but I just want to make that joke. All right. What do y'all think about the Hung Dong?
I think he needs to get a pager.
Yeah, exactly. Better keep it away from his job.
I mean, it's good if we're talking with the Chinese. I think it's a waste because right now, as you mentioned, we're in a lame duck period and nobody really knows what's going to happen for the next 2 months. Kamala Harris, nobody respects her. So let's just wait until we figure out what's going to be next. And if it is Kamala Harris, well, everybody's going to be pushing America around for the next 4 years.
I think if Trump was in office right now, we'd probably be talking to the Russians against Chinese. The Chinese are the wild card right now. As John Jay pointed out a couple of times, there's three superpowers. There's three global powers. When you look at three, I mean, that's not an even number. So it's going to be 2 against 1 in some way, shape, or form. 2 against 1. We want the 2 to be on our side. So it's either going to be China or Russia against China or Russia. So yeah, it's a good deal. Better that we're talking with them than the Russians and the Chinese are talking against us.
The dialogue with China is important. And I think if you want to choose a superpower to ally with, Russia or China, you definitely choose China. In my opinion, you don't want to alienate China. I think the economic interdependency of our nation, it's something that...
One of the things they mentioned is that Secretary Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, I believe, is still hospitalized. Like, how long has this guy been out? And how has he not been replaced? I think it's a demonstration that Joe Biden is a lame duck, doesn't give a fuck about his job, and is already pieced out. So I think the fact that Secretary Austin is still hospitalized and unable to do his job, yet hasn't been replaced by Joe Biden, just demonstrates that Joe Biden is unfit for his fucking position.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Is he still in the hospital, though?
Yes, this is the article said that Lloyd Austin is not able to communicate with them. He's not doing his job.
I mean, dude's got ass cancer.
I thought he was just on a trip.
Can you guys hear me?
No, he's got ass cancer, man. He's going to be in the hospital. He's got cancer in his asshole, which is not good.
Which means he can't do his job and he needs to be replaced. I feel bad for the guy. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying that Lloyd Austin has demonstrated that he is incapable of doing his job, and he's a national security risk to the United States of America. And Joe Biden, the fact that he has not taken action to replace him is demonstrating severe lack of, like, he just doesn't give a fuck about his job because he's just waiting until he's replaced because he's already pieced out. So we have a pure lame duck situation in America right now with Jill Biden running cabinet meetings.
I think the relationship with China is incredibly important. They're a threat, they're an adversary, but they're also an important ally. And I don't say that in the pure sense. I say is we have an interdependency with China. President Trump criticizes that interdependency, but honestly, I think that's kind of what saves our asses with them sometimes.
All right, well, that's the last topic, and I think everything went really well this week. We're going to get some hits on our nude Africa profiles and from our platform here. All right, so thank you, guys. Would you like to say goodbye? Any final words, starting with John?
Great to be on here with you guys. It's always good talking with veterans. We put it plain and simple.
The words of one of my mentors, don't trust technology.
Don't trust your walkie-talkie.
Peace out.
Mason.
I agree with what you guys said, and technology is definitely scary and getting scarier every day, especially the ability to misuse it by nefarious regimes. But the interesting thing I kind of think as we discuss Russia and China, I'm more curious to see if there will be a global Muslim enemy in the future. I just feel like China has a Muslim problem. Russia has a Muslim problem. America has a Muslim problem. Europe has a Muslim problem. I think that World War III may change, and instead of it being superpowers against superpowers, we might finally see the world unite against those fucking assholes.
I think we need to specify extremists, because I know a lot of Muslims that I get along fine with.
Not Mason, apparently. All right. That's it for Real Veteran News this week. Plenty of jokes, and thanks for watching. Come back next week. Bye.